this is a nothing. Yes, did they play perfect? No, they still win. Yes.
What are you doing if the Celtics win the championship?
If the Celtics win championship, I might break my sobriety. I might act up.
We did it! You got him.
All the way.
Celtics versus Heat. Celtics in what?
4.
Celtics versus Knicks. Celtics in
4.
You got Celtics in 4?
Celtics.
Hell yeah.
Use a vocab word from a couple years ago. It's mind-boggling.
That's it, DRG. Let's go. What do you think tonight? You think I'm worried about the Warriors? I ain't worried about them. Let's go, baby. 18, baby. Load up the boat.
Why would you say that?
Because
I'm not. No,
recently he's putting up games like.
Above our head for the players.
Literally right now.
But I think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call.
You think right now
Rob,
it's still New York?
I do. And when I think of the Celtics dynasty, honestly, one of the first names that comes to my mind is actually Brad Stevens.
Oh, man.
Cut the music.
Man,
There's no music to cut, but cut it anyway.
Yeah,
Just cut it.
I know. It almost
Just
feels like
cut
we
it.
need like a sad version of the intro when we lose, where we're all just
Like just
We're all
Yeah, honestly, when it
playing.
started, it was like this is too much right now. Way too much. We're looking at all these good times.
that
Like
was
this
a fun
is not
game.
one of those.
That was a fun game. I don't know why the vibes are so down. That was a fun game. What else did we expect?
well,
Okay,
you know
Scout
what?
had
You
a
wouldn't
big-
have known
okay,
it was
Scout.
bad. Yeah,
Scout had
yeah,
fun.
you wouldn't have known it was bad if you listened to NBC Sports Boston broadcast. But what is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. I am your host, Rob Haytan. Joined with me are my three co-hosts, Nick Franco, Justin Lowe, and Seamus Arlingo. You guys know me, love them. Guys, tonight the Celtics, well, they had an absolute and utter collapse in that second half on the road against the Oklahoma City Thunder. What many are calling, myself included, a potential NBA Finals preview. Well, the Thunder, they got the better hand on the Boston Celtics today. 105-92, a low-scoring game from the two teams who are very, very efficient and effective at scoring the basketball, guys. You know, obviously, this did not go our way tonight, and there is a lot we are going to talk about with this game.
Okay.
But you know the drill, our initial thoughts, reactions, and takeaways on this loss.
It was the best first half of the season so far. I mean, all around game. The Celtics came in and they were locked in. They were dialed in. Offensively, just pounding the paint in the first half. Boston had, I believe it was up to a 13-point lead at one point in that first half. And they followed that up with their worst second half, not only of the season, maybe in franchise history, at least one of the worst second halves in franchise history, only 27 points scored. They had more turnovers than made field goals in the second half. As much as I would, you guys know me, I am very high on this Oklahoma City Thunder team. As much as I'd love to sit here for the next hour and a half and gossip about this young Oklahoma City Thunder team who's won 15 straight games, can't help but say that the Boston Celtics lost this game themselves tonight. Abysmal 9 of 45 shooting from deep tonight. Lots of turnovers, zero bench production tonight, maybe outside of Al Horford. Just an ugly, ugly, ugly second half for the Boston Celtics, resulting in a 13-point loss.
All right, this is where we tee off. This is where we just tee off. First of all, Justin, I'm so glad that you said the Boston Celtics actually lost this game, because if you watch NBC Sports Boston tonight, it felt like everybody was saying, oh, look at the Thunder. Look how awesome the Thunder are. Look, the Thunder won this game. They won this over the Boston Celtics. Look how great the Oklahoma City Thunder are. And yes, we got to give credit to the Oklahoma City Thunder for actually winning this game and going out there and grabbing it in the second half after the Celtics. They looked like they were going to run away with this game at one point, up 10 points at half. Looked like in the second half, all right, here we go. Can we add on to the lead? Thunder claw their way back and, of course, completely run in front of the Celtics. But we all know the Thunder are good. The Celtics know the Thunder are good. It was evident in the way the Celtics came out and played this game early. Justin, you mentioned it already that the Celtics played their best first half of the season in this game, and that's what's so frustrating about the second half is we were ready to come in here and really praise the Celtics on their performance tonight, and yet they drop just one of the most putrid, awful, horrendous, disgraceful second halves we've ever seen, or a half in general, out of this team, this particular Celtics team. But Justin, again, you said it. Maybe any Celtics team ever. 15 points in the third quarter. After that, we're sitting here going, well, it can't get any worse than this, right? Fourth quarter, we can go ahead and turn it around, right? No, 12 points in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, we give up 29. The Celtics give up 29 points in the fourth quarter. And particularly at the end of the fourth quarter, the Celtics wave the white flag on defense, giving the Oklahoma City Thunder wide open threes. And guess what? Boom. Right at one after another. In, swish, swish, swish. And that was the end of the game. The Thunder, they ran in front of the Celtics at the end of the game. And the Celtics, yes, at one point in time, it felt like it was going to be a little bit of a demoralizing stretch with the Thunder taking the lead with the Celtics. It was a 15-point turnaround at one point, a 16-point turnaround. Yet the Celtics, they were still in the game. They were still in the game. It was 5, 6 points. It was 8 points here, there. Celtics were still in the game, yet down the stretch, white flag defense comes out. The Thunder, they run away. They have an eventual 13-point lead, their biggest lead of the game. And, of course, they win by 13 points. And the Celtics, they go into halftime with 65 points on the board and come out with 92. What is going on right now with the Celtics team? I understand the last 3 games. Okay, we turned the corner. We saw the consistency out of this club. We saw the penetrating of the paint, the attacking of the paint, the attention to detail on defense. We want to give the Celtics credit for those 3 games against the Raptors, the Timberwolves, and of course the Houston Rockets the other night. However, tonight, the first half, it looked like a continuation of that. And we were going to come in here and actually talk about that. Yet in the second half, it reverts back to where we saw the Celtics in the Indiana game. And now we're looking at it going, okay, there's definitely a silver lining somewhere in here where the Celtics played well in the first half. And if they can just play that way for a full 48 minutes, they come out with a win. And ultimately, if they do play a 7-game series against the Thunder, there's going to be more games to be had. However, that second half reverts back to the conversation of the consistency surrounding this ball club. The Celtics completely went away from everything that made them successful in the first half. In the second half, the Celtics completely went away from all of it. It was, oh, we're settling for 3-pointers. Oh, we're catching off the first pass. Oh, right. Defensively, we're not rotating crisply. And that's not what we saw out of the Celtics in the first half whatsoever. They were penetrating the paint. It was really, again, we broke it down on postgame the other night against the Houston Rockets. That was one of their best games of just attacking the paint, setting the tone early. They did that again tonight, the Celtics did. Yet the second half, it didn't continue. And you have to give OKC some credit for coming back here. But the Celtics, they certainly shot themselves in the foot by the way they played today and tonight. And this is really just, disgusting loss. It is a disgusting loss because of how the Celtics played in the first half versus how they played in the second half. 27 points in the second half. I mean, we're just going to continuously talk about it here on this post game, but that is unacceptable. They had 30 points. The Celtics had 30 points in the second quarter alone, and they scored 27 in the second half. Come on, folks. Come on. Ridiculous.
You need to get a little bit, when you're facing such a young team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, you cannot try to play the attritional game and let your foot off the gas. You need to find that cruise control state, and it seemed like they were in such a flow state. Like I said, the first half of this game was probably the most alike to the championship run we saw last season that we've seen all year this year. And we just saw them completely take their foot off the gas and try to either, I don't know what the game plan was. I think they were trying to expand the lead, which is a very challenging thing to do when you're facing Oklahoma City Thunder team who just saw their 30th win after tonight's game. And we should have been able to maintain that lead and being able to hold on in transition. The defense during the first half, the paint was looking impenetrable with the way that Kristaps, Derek White were
Let's go
playing. Yeah, I've been reading the thesaurus down there, but
He had that circled for tonight.
they were doing such a great job of maintaining the defensive edge, and you just saw the athleticism of the Oklahoma City Thunder take over the game. And obviously, they were trying to match them for 3 for 3, but I think if the Celtics were just able to maintain attacking the rim, because we saw Jason Tatum out there tonight, he looked like a center compared to the Oklahoma City roster. The Oklahoma City roster is probably averaging around 6'5", and those are their power forwards. And the only person with a little bit of height and size on that roster who was on the court tonight for the Oklahoma City Thunder that they were missing, Chet Holmgren, was Isaiah Hartenstein. And they were able to take full advantage of that during the first half. They were able to. We saw Derek White getting his fade-ins, running into the paint, being able to get his looks that we have been so excited to see Derek White be able to do again. And it just faded away, and they were just chucking up shots, and that's not something you can do against a team as powerful as the Oklahoma City Thunder. And if we do run into them in a championship, which is they're one of the top contenders heading out of the West, if we make it that far, they're going to be able to do that, and they're going to be able to have that attrition because they have such fresh legs. And our bench did not help out a single bit tonight.
Right. I was waiting for that. Now, for me, you have to look at these games a little bit differently than you look at most of the other games. Now, in the grand scheme of things, there's only really going to be about 10 games throughout the course of 82 games season when you're a team like Boston, where you can pull stuff from them. They truly hold like real meaning to the course of the season. So you can't look at this game as one of 82, right? In reality, it's what it is, right? But how I look at it is, if this was game one of the NBA finals and the Celtics had lost this game, how would I feel? And to be completely honest with you, I would feel pretty good. Considering the fact that you're not going to score 27 points in a half every night. You're not going to shoot that poor from.
It's tough to maintain.
It's extremely tough to maintain. Boston showed us in the first half, right? They had it until they didn't. Right now, does that excuse Boston's terrible play tonight in the second half? Absolutely not. But in terms of how I look at this in the grand scheme of, okay, a playoff system, a 7-game series, I think Boston can go into game 2 feeling, or as a fan, I'm feeling not terrible versus a 48-minute of domination, right, from Oklahoma City. Does it suck? Yes, we were playing some beautiful basketball. We were playing, some of the best basketball of the season, right, until we weren't. But, again, that's how I view that. That's how I view this game. But
trying to crash like the Celtics in the second half.
I said this. I was taught, during the game there in that fourth quarter, maybe 5.5 minutes left. I said to you guys, we were down by 6. I said, with how horrendous we've been playing this second half, how are we only down 2 possessions? Defense tonight. Hey, if we're going to sit here and take anything away from this game, I didn't have much issue with the defense tonight. Offensively, second half, I was not happy with it's. And again, I'm so big on like, hey, listen, I don't care if you shoot 27 threes, but how are you going to shoot them? And how are you going to generate them? In the first half, the threes weren't falling, but they were generating those threes. Why? Because they were getting into the paint. And I know that we have a few shot charts that we'll pull up later to compare, the first half and the second half. But second half, turnovers absolutely killed us. I do give a little credit to the Oklahoma City Thunder. One of the league's best defenses, yes, but at the same time, these guys, the Boston Celtics, with their experience, their championship experience and pedigree, they should know better than this. There's no world in which, and I don't care if you're playing the best team or you're playing the worst team, whether it's the Thunder or the Pelicans, there's no world in which in one single half you should have more turnovers than made field goals. That is unacceptable. That is absolutely unacceptable.
I do think, though, when you're looking at this, right, I do think that where Boston has stood in December is going to be easy to cloud your judgment in terms of what this means, right? So I agree with you, right? The Celtics were putrid in that second half. I mean, putrid. I mean, a team that is offensively dominant and has so many ways of attacking. They scored 27. I mean, we're going to be a broken record on this 27 points.
Yeah.
27 second half points, right? That is terrible. I 100% agree. But say Boston didn't have that December, right? And I mean, mind you, they're 8-6 in that December. So say if they were 10-4 or 11-3, you're sitting here thinking, okay, well, the OKC is the best team out west. They're at home. This is probably a game they're going to win, right? Like that. That's your mindset going into this game, right? That, okay, Oklahoma probably gets you at their place. But I think how putrid they were in that second half, you can't pull that from this game anymore.
It's a shame.
It's just going through the second half numbers. It's actually comical. 8 of 40 from the floor. 8 of 40. 3 of 24 from three. That's 12%. That's 12.5% from 3-point land in the second half. Turnovers. We already mentioned this. 10 turnovers. And we've been talking about assist to turnover ratio as of late. 3 assists in the second half. 3 assists. 3 assists in the second half to 10 turnovers. And also, I'll mention this. The Celtics at halftime were leading the paint battle 34-20. All right. And that's really what we were looking at in the first half, going, look, the Celtics are getting downhill, getting to the paint. Yes, they're not making their threes, but they're creating points in the paint and they're creating good quality looks from the perimeter. They led 34-20 in points in the paint in the first half. For the game, however, they lose the points in the paint battle 42-40. So after scoring 34 points in the paint in the first half, the Celtics score 6 points in the paint in the second half and allow 20 points in the paint for the Oklahoma City Thunder. These numbers are absolutely comical. You can see it in the lead tracker as well, if we could put that up too, because my goodness.
Let's jump right into that. That's a great segue. So here we got a lead tracker for tonight. And it is, I mean, it is just kind of the exact opposite of what you want to see out of your basketball team. The Celtics just had everything going through really the heart, right? What you call the heart of the game, the middle part of that of this game. They started off the game poor. They grew their lead to as much as 13 points until they just went down and down and down and down until eventually the Oklahoma City Thunder snagged that lead, and they never looked back, and they put the pedal to the metal to the Boston Celtics guys. So again, I mean, it's like in that fourth quarter, what happened? What exactly? Because I know we've touched it, but for you guys, what exactly was the main factor to what Boston couldn't do? Was it Oklahoma? Is it what they were doing, or was it what Boston wasn't doing?
I'll give a little credit to Oklahoma, but that momentum swing coming out of the second half was something that the Celtics should have been able to expect. You're going against such a young team that's so talented. They're going to be able to find their looks and be able to get to the rim. And you saw it when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander came out of halftime. He came out smiling. The Celtics should have known that they were going to be in for a dogfight to finish out this game, and things weren't going to come in sweet. I think they were really just taking very nonchalant shots. They were trying to keep things with obtainable and not really try to exert themselves. But you're playing a team that I would like to know the average age of the Oklahoma City Thunder. They have very young wheels. They're going to keep you running the entire game. They're on the defensive end and on transition. You could see that the Celtic starters were getting burnt by that when it came down to the final runs of the game. And when they got to the fourth quarter, it was almost too late to bounce back from that, and the whole momentum completely switched over to the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Celtics couldn't really do anything to stop them after that point. And you just need, when you're facing a team like that, you need to keep your foot on their throat while you have them down and be able to keep on attacking what is working. Because if the Celtics just maintained their attack on the rim and being able to have Tatum getting his looks by the in the paint, being able to get to the foul line, because the Oklahoma City Thunder were fouling a lot during the first half, and then during the second half they were also fouling, which a couple of calls were missed. But it's in no position to ever complain about the refs, but it's still something that the Celtics need to be able to handle and be able to face an aggressive team and not just rely on their skill to beat that, and be able to take a punch in the mouth and throw one back.
And what's so frustrating about what you're saying, Franco, really right now is the fact the Celtics in the first half, they looked like the more sizable team. They looked like the more physical team. They looked like the faster team in the first half, especially going to the hole and even in terms of transition and pace. The Thunder want to play with pace. The Celtics, they want to play at a little bit of a slower pace than the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yet in that first half, felt like the Celtics, they were kind of giving Oklahoma City a little bit of their own medicine from that standpoint. Yet in the second half, the Celtics go away from it. And now the Oklahoma City Thunder, from all of the media out there, they're the ones being praised for how physical they were in this game, how fast they were in this game, how aggressive they were in this game, when we all know the Celtics were the more physical team, the more aggressive team, the more sizable team in that first half. Yet in the second half, that is not what we saw. And there's so many other things to talk about in regards to what went wrong for the Celtics in this game. And I think one of them really is the offensive end of the floor. Yes, you want to give credit to Oklahoma City for allowing only 27 points in the second half. Sure, they really got after it on defense, but it's not as if the Celtics in the first half, in the second half, right? You score 65 points in the first half, 27 in the second half. It's not as if the Celtics, there was some massive change in game plan from Oklahoma City, from the Oklahoma City Thunder's defensive perspective. Yes, there are going to be minor adjustments at halftime in which happen that are going to muck up the water for the Celtics, and they have to go in and make their own adjustments on the fly in the second half. However, the discrepancy in points, right? That's 35 plus 3, 38 points, right? 38-point discrepancy from what you score in the first half to the second half. So it's not all adjustment by the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's a lot of what the Celtics were doing themselves. And offensively, in the first half, the paint penetration was really the point of emphasis. We're talking about it so much. That is what was winning the Celtics the game, because they were creating free throws. They were creating wide open looks at the rim, wide open looks from three. And in the second half, it felt like more hero ball. It felt like more, or I should say less movement out on the floor. And ultimately, just in terms of the movement in general on players, like how were they moving on the floor with the ball, it felt like every time the ball came into each player's hands on the Celtics, they were not looking to drive aggressively. They were standing there with the ball looking to pass or shoot. And the Celtics, from an aggression standpoint, it went away in the second half. It went away. And at the beginning of this game, it was clear the Celtics put a point of emphasis on attacking the rim. They had the last three games. It was evident against Toronto, evident against Minnesota, evident against Houston. It was so evident after that recent stretch of 2-4 in 6 games. The Celtics are playing awfully inconsistent. The Celtics got back to where they were last year and got back to their game, and they came into the first half like that tonight. Yet in the second half, where did it go? Where did it go? And yes, you want to give Oklahoma City credit for what they were able to do defensively, but again, the defensive adjustments did not account for all 38 points the Celtics lacked in the second half compared to the first half, because 38-point discrepancy between halves. The Celtics, that is shooting yourself in the foot. I already said it, but the Celtics, you just have to look at them and their effort in the second half and go, what was that? What was that? Some of these numbers, it almost feels impossible for the Celtics to even put up. It really does. How do you pass to 3 assists in the second? 24 minutes. Okay, guys? 24 minutes you're on the floor. I'm going insane right now. You're on the floor for 24 minutes in the second half. Okay? How do you pass to 3 assists? After the last couple of games, we've been seeing the team pass to 30 assists for the game. 3 assists in 24 minutes, 10 turnovers, 8 of 40, 3 of 24. these numbers and 6 points in the paint after you score 34 in the first half. I already mentioned these numbers, but these are legitimately hard numbers to put up, regardless of what a defense is doing to you. It's mind-boggling. We have to bring out the
Oh,
vocab
don't
terms right
say
now
it.
from
Don't say
2022
it.
right now.
Oh,
Mind-boggling. How does this happen? And I want to lay into the Celtics team because we're going to mention this on the broadcast too. And we don't have to get too far into this conversation right now. We can maybe save it for the end of the show or later. But NBC Sports Boston, they're out here praising the Oklahoma City Thunder and how great they were, how amazing the Oklahoma City Thunder were. Yeah, give them credit, but dig into the Celtics because they beat themselves in the second half. They beat themselves. You cannot come out in the first half and look exactly how the Celtics did and then look at the second half and go, yep, that was all Oklahoma City. They just turned up to enough. No, the Celtics beat themselves. They scored
well,
65 points in the first half, went insane in the first half because you felt the atmosphere. You felt the heightened intensity behind this game. We were all saying, oh, yeah, Thunder Celtics, big one coming up on a Sunday afternoon down in Oklahoma City.
On League
on NBA
Pass.
TV.
And yeah, unfortunately on NBA TV. The Celtics woke up for this game, but then they fell asleep. That's
Thank
what
God.
happened.
Let me here's my kind of gripe with what happened. And it's like, I've been looking at Joe Mazzulla a lot throughout December in kind of the first part of January, and the Celtics' attention to detail to start the game was so apparent. I mean, even into the minute detail of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander liking to push the pace and go isolation off of free throws. I mean, that is a very, very minute detail that you need to catch on to that they did. And they were guarding it. They were playing well. Their switches off pick and rolls. I mean, Kristaps was hedging it and they weren't switching it to get on shot. I mean, they were playing with intent, with purpose, and everything. The game plan looked so solid defensively. And then on the offensive floor side of the thing, they were getting to the rim, creating mismatches, right? Kind of playing that killer whale offense to the best of their ability. And in the second half, when Oklahoma City made clear adjustments, I mean, they picked up their intensity. They were pushing the pace. They were driving and kicking. I mean, they were moving the Celtics around on defense. And you look at the Boston side of things, there was no adjustments in the Celtics players. It kind of felt like they went into, okay, let's just huck it up mode. And as a coach, you need to be able to stop the game, right? And say, no, like, guys, this is what we need to do. This is who we need to attack. This is an action we need to get into to get ourselves out of this drought. This is what we need to do defensively. Like, there was nothing. The start of the third quarter looked identical to the end of the third quarter, which looked identical to the start of the fourth quarter, which looked identical to the end of the fourth quarter. In a game that is two top dogs, a heavyweight matchup, a finals preview, it can't just be something where you're just like, okay, let's see if they can figure it out. Or, okay, let's see if they'll throw together. No, this is a different type of regular season game. This is a game that for morale, you need to go out there and you need to play your best ball and you need to coach your best game. And guys, I don't know about you, but tonight, Joe Mazzulla, he did not coach his best game.
He just was letting them play. He didn't during the third quarter when the collapse that was inevitable was being like foreplayed in front of our eyes. We couldn't really do anything about it. But all that had to be done to stop that momentum was a quick timeout during the third quarter. Tell your guys to stop, to leave the 3-point alone. I think if they were able to start to maintain that and start to slow down the game, they fed way too much into the way the Thunder were playing tonight. They were playing the Thunder's game. They weren't playing their own. During the second quarter of tonight's game, you could see that the Celtics were playing their game. You saw that when the Thunder were trying to get the Celtics to ramp up and they were able to cool them down and on the transitions, being able to throw those blocks against the board, being able to stop them from getting the transition offense that they are very accustomed to. And then once you let that slip, you let the Thunder control the narrative. And that's something that the Celtics usually do a great job of avoiding, is playing into the other team's hands. But that was something that Mark Daigneault was able to take full advantage of heading into the third and fourth.
I'm going to add this too, as well, to the lack of adjustments. You're right, Rob. the first portion of the third quarter looked exactly like the last portion of the third quarter, and so on and so forth into the fourth. But it also looked much like the first half as well, not in terms of the production of the Celtics offense, but there were little key points within the offense which the Celtics went to in the second half that was there in the first half, but then there was all this other nonsense. I shouldn't say nonsense, but what they ran in the first half, it didn't happen in the second half. You saw early in the game the pick and roll with Kristaps Porzingis. It was so big in the first half. You had Derek White running it with them. You had Jaylen Brown running it with Kristaps, and you had guys going down the hill, downhill towards the rim to get wide open buckets for either Kristaps on a lob or themselves on a floater or for somebody else on the perimeter for three. You saw an array of plays in the first half from the Celtics, which you didn't see in the second half. In the second half, it was a lot of Tatum in the high post. We saw that a lot in the first half. In the first half as well, we saw Tatum pick and roll from the top of the key with Al Horford. It felt like the entire second half was Tatum in the high post, Tatum pick and roll with Al Horford. And that's how Tatum came out with 15 second half points ultimately, is the fact they were just going to Tatum in those same two plays the entire time. Well, where's the pick and roll with Kristaps Porzingis? Where's the two-man game with Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis, with Derek White and Kristaps Porzingis? Where's the play where you're screening for Tatum on the wing with Drew Holiday, having him slip to the rim, and then passing it around the key, and then forcing some guy, whichever defender it was, to meet two, whether it was the guy sliding down low towards the rim. On the weak side, you have that weak side defender there, right? Where the ball is.
Right.
You're making him either defend the guy sliding towards the rim, right? Or you're making him defend the guy on the perimeter. Where was that in the second half? It wasn't there. It wasn't there. We didn't see cuts to the rim in the second half. We didn't see off-ball movement in the second half. It was, we're playing 5 out. Tatum in the high post. Here you go, mismatch. Tatum one-on-one. Where's the movement on the floor? Where's the specific? Where? Why? And this is really. I hate to have this conversation right now after this loss because, of course, we give him praise after a win and we'll say all this. But Joe Mazzulla, you're completely right about the adjustment game. We saw this last year in the playoffs at some points. Game 2 against the Miami Heat. Game 2 against the Cleveland Cavaliers, where it just felt like, on our home floor here, the other team playing us in a multi-game series, they're making adjustments. We're not making them as quickly, and we're falling behind. Now, of course, the playoff run it ended up being dominant for the Celtics, but their talent had a lot to do with that. Their shot-making ability and their attention to that detail had a lot to do with that. And yes, the Celtics, Joe Mazzulla, he did make adjustments last playoff, and you got to give him credit for that. But it's these little in-game adjustments.
That's last playoff too.
Right.
We haven't seen that this year, and we got to see that this year. And this was a great
always been the conversation with him, regardless. Right. Even last year in the playoffs, we saw in those games. We're not making the end game. We can make game to game. Okay,
right. That's something game 1 to game 2. Right.
But it's the end game adjustments where we look at Joe Mazzulla and go, okay, the other team, right? They made this specific defensive adjustment, or they made this offensive adjustment. Can we adjust as quickly? And we just don't. Or this game, I don't even want to say the adjustments. I'm not going to say they weren't as big, but it's like as if we reverted. It's like we had this myriad of options offensively in the first half, and in the second half, it's like, oh no, we're going to revert to a more toxic form of our offense than what we saw in the first half. It's like, what were we doing?
Well, I'm happy you said that, because we have the shot distribution between the first half and the second half, and I if we could, can we please throw it up on the screen? Because on your left you have your first half, and on your right you have your second half. And okay, yeah, a lot of X's on that 3-point line in both halves. Yeah, sure. Look at all the green. Look at where all the green is coming from. It's on the left in the first half, all in the paint. The Celtics shot 51%. A minus 31% was shot in the second half. Minus 31%. That is abysmal. That is a joke. That is terrible. That's mind-boggling. You want to say it, Seamus? You said it first. I'll say it second. That's mind-boggling. The Boston Celtics had their 13-point lead in that first half. The offense was flowing, and guess what? When they were hitting threes in the first half, the ball more than likely hit the paint first. Celtics stride away from that, and look at this. A 13-point lead turned into a 13-point loss. In this game is a very similar game that I watched on League Pass about 2 nights ago, maybe, against the New York Knicks and the Oklahoma City Thunder.
But you said it at halftime. I have to give you your credit.
I said, yeah, this is the best half. This is the best half of Celtics basketball we've had. I'm not calling us the New York Knicks, but at the same time, the New York Knicks also led by 12 at half. And guess what? They also lost by double digits. And that same thing happened tonight. The same thing happened tonight. And I was watching this game in the second half, and I was saying to myself, we're actually playing worse than the New York Knicks did in this game, yet we're only down 6 points. We're only down 2 possessions, and we're playing terrible. Offensively, we were playing terrible. Defensively, the Celtics were getting stops. The Celtics, the only thing defensively that killed them tonight, that absolutely killed them, was in that second half when they were allowing second chance opportunities. They weren't grabbing that defensive rebound. That led to second chance opportunities. I get it. The Thunder, maybe not
turnovers.
Their 20th, to turnovers too, a bit just terrible. But 20th in 3-point percentage this year are the Oklahoma City Thunder. So one of the bottom tier teams from behind the arc. Yet you get those open looks, fellas. They're going to start falling eventually. Lou Dort hit a pair of threes late in this game that really put this game out of reach for the Boston Celtics. So I do want to, as much as you guys know how much I love to credit the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight, it's clear as day when you put up those two shot charts from the first half and the second half. It's clear as day the Celtics went away from what was working. And it's not like, look at this. It's not even like, okay, we at least went to the paint and we missed a lot. No, there aren't even a lot of there's not even a lot of shot attempts in that second half in the paint. You have a few mid-range attempts, but you have nothing going on in the paint, and quite everything is around that perimeter. And that just can't happen on a night where you're playing so well. In a night where you're not shooting the ball well, you cannot just keep shooting threes. That can't happen.
It's lazy.
Well, yeah, we got to put that shot chart back up here for a second because I want to point out a couple things about it. Okay, first of all, look inside the paint here at the type of shots shot inside the paint in the first half versus the second half. In the first half, a couple of those made looks, they're a little more towards the middle of the paint. Guess what type of shot those are? Those shots are floaters. Those are those open floaters where you're making Oklahoma City decide. You're coming downhill off the pick and roll most of the time, and you're going, look at this. Okay, I'm coming downhill off the pick and roll. I have the guy at my hip, right? I have my defender, my opponent at my hip. And basically you're splitting two between, you have a guy in the dunker spot or you have a guy rolling, and you're making a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein decide, am I going to cover the roll man and Kristaps Porzingis here? Am I going to cover the dunker spot and Luke Cornett? Or am I going to go up and challenge Jaylen Brown? Am I going to go up and challenge Jason Tatum? Am I going to go challenge Derek White? And ultimately, that's the Celtics playing on the pick and roll, going downhill, finding that floater, finding those buckets at the rim for their big man. Yet in the second half, look at where all the shots are from inside the paint. They're, first of all, a lot of just how many misses inside the paint in that second half compared to the first half. The first half, you see a ton of green down there. In the second half, miss. And that's either a right-handed or left-handed layup. And you're not seeing the difference in shots inside the paint in terms of you're getting that floater, you're getting those easy buckets for those big men. Those shots in the second half, those are contested layups. Put it back up there real quick. We got to go. We got to keep going on this. Those shots in the second half are contested layups. The shots inside the paint in the second half are contested layups. The shots inside the paint in the first half are opportunities in which you're getting easily, whether it's a floater, it's a less contested layup because, you're putting one defender in between two players and making him decide and split two players to where it's less contested on the layup. or you're throwing a lob or throwing a pass to the guy in the dunker spot and he's finishing, and that's going to be a less contested shot too. So the contests are completely different between the first and second half. That's what I'll point out there and why the misses and makes are there. But look at the 3-point shooting as well between the two halves. The 3-point shooting in the first half, you notice there are more 3-point shots coming from that wing area, right? And yes, there are some 3-point shots on the wing in the second half, but they're more consolidated towards the top of the key, right? They're more consolidated up near the top of the key. They're not as spread out towards the wing. Well, those 3-point shots in the first half from the wing, those were coming off actions in which the Celtics were penetrating the paint, collapsing the defense, and swinging it out to the corner or swinging it out to the wing. And guys were relocating and finding open shots from particularly the wing you saw there in the first half. In the second half, when those shots are more consolidated at the top of the key, right? Those are shots in which guys are dribbling up and shooting or touching the ball once off of one pass from the top of the key and just jacking a three. And I understand that people, too, we've had this conversation a million times. People are tired of the Celtics doing what they did in the second half and putting up a shot chart like that in the second half, where the Celtics, a lot of their 3-point attempts are more consolidated at the top of the key, and there's a lot of misses, 3 of 24 in the second half. Now, you could say some of that was due to variance, but it's also the shot quality and shot selection. That's really what we're talking about here and what we've been talking about with the Celtics all season.
Well,
We want the
and
volume to
Seamus,
be there. But
it,
the quality matters, and the quality in the second half, you can see it in this shot chart from both the paint and the perimeter, and it's sickening. It's sickening, quite frankly. It's quite frankly sickening.
and there's not a big difference between how many makes, like 3-point makes, in between the first and second half. I mean, if you really think about it, right, in the shot chucking, like the Celtics shot wise were very similar first half, second half in terms of behind the arc, right? They weren't making a lot of threes in the first half, right? Like that should have never, as a mindset for that second half, that should have never been a thought. Like, oh, let's just shoot a bunch of, like, it wasn't working in the first half, and they just steered completely away from literally like, okay, this is what's working. Let's do the complete opposite. This is what's working, and this what isn't working. Let's do what's not working, because it's not like the 3-point shot was open and they were falling and they were like, no, like they weren't shooting great in that first half, and they just went that way. They're like, we're not shooting great. Let's keep doing it until we maybe make one. And
let's take worse shots while doing it. How about that?
Exactly,
we'll take worse shots.
The quality of the shot, exactly. So it was a complete and utter collapse in that second half.
I do want to just kind of make this. Maybe I don't speak for all of Celtics Nation, but I will speak for myself. Yes, there were some questionable calls tonight, but at the same time, I don't know why I'm on Twitter and Instagram seeing the refs and Scott Foster, this and that. Yes, I get it. There's always going to be questionable calls, but like when you shoot 9,
the refs don't hold you to 27 points.
Like you shoot 9 for 40, more turnovers and made field goals, and you get out rebound. Like, I'm sorry, like. And on top of that, when the Celtics did get to the free throw line, there was a play in that third quarter where Jason Tatum went 1 for 3 at the free throw line on a 3-point attack. Like, there's just so much that went wrong tonight with tonight's game on the Celtics end. It's really, 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 really a bad look when you're going to go out there and complain about the officials in a 13-point loss after you shot 20% in the second half. That is a really, really bad look. I'm just saying, and I'm not going to deny that. Yeah, it's okay. There's some questionable calls. That definitely some questionable calls, questionable no calls. But at the same time, if we're going to sit here and act like the refs decided the outcome of this game tonight, 105-92, when you shot 20% in the second half, give me a break on that.
Oh, certainly. The referees, they were not consistent down the stretch, but it was 3 possessions. There's 200 possessions in a ball game. It's like, you do what you need to do. I'm never about complaining about the refs, because there are way too many possessions that you can raise the margin of error for yourself and your team to the point where the refs should not matter. If you're complaining about the refs, well, you didn't do enough in the other 200 possessions in order to win the game, quite frankly. That's what I think.
There were some Thunder players specifically in that first half in foul trouble. You know, Shai had 2 early fouls. Celtics should have been going at Shai earlier. They really should, you know. But so that's kind of like, I just wanted to put an end on that because I don't know why. I mean, it just makes
It's
Celtic
something for
fans.
people to latch on to and be mad
It
about
is.
because
It
we are
is.
mad on this post game. We're a little.
But
Our emotions
also
are
it's
running
like,
high.
yeah, but also it's like
Nah.
there's like they get like
We're cool.
really like a 13-point loss, shot 20%, more turnovers than made field goals. You're really gonna sit here and talk about Scott Foster? Are we gonna do that?
That's not enough.
No, you're not. But I mean, just
Easy
and
narrative.
it stinks. It stinks that this is what we're talking about. You know, it stinks because, you know, obviously, you know, there's a 48-minute game and we had only played 24 minutes of them. But like, I was excited at halftime and obviously I still am excited to come on here and talk about this game, win or loss. It's important to dissect these games, especially important to talk about these games in these types of losses. As much as it sucks to talk about a Celtics loss, when you lose, especially against a team that you might see down the line, it is a very important topic to touch on. That's why all 4 of us are sitting in a chair right now talking about it. But the Celtics easily played their best.
All 4 of us.
I don't have a chair near.
Yeah, Franco almost didn't have a chair before we hit record. Franco tripped, almost shattered.
I was almost on the injury report.
I was almost at 3 in here.
But on a serious note, it stinks that we're sitting here kind of talking about the downside of things because the Celtics for the first 24 minutes of this game really, I mean, they were really dialed in. And I know and it sucks because none of that matters. None of that matters right now. What matters is the Celtics lost by 13 points tonight in Oklahoma, not the fact that the Celtics came out, had their best first half of the entire regular season. I said this, like, we've had halves this year where we're scoring 70, almost 80 points in a first half. But I feel as if tonight in the first half, we haven't seen such a dialed in complete game. And Franco, you kind of made the comment earlier of like, this first 24 minutes felt as close to as that championship run team last year as we felt all.
It felt better. It felt better.
Right? And I will say this. Okay, second half, when it mattered most, Celtics absolutely just laid down and they took a 13-point loss. I will say, though, these last 3.5 games, minus this, obviously half, first half here, lost, second half, Celtics have really been looking a lot better than that December stretch. And it stinks that we're talking about a loss because that first half was so good. That Toronto game was the second largest win in franchise history. You come in against Minnesota, start of a road trip, first night of a back-to-back. You get the news. All of a sudden, you're thinking, oh, KP and Jalen, they're going to return. Sounds like their practices went well. Their shoot-arounds went well. Uh-oh, they're not playing. Guess what? Toughed out a 3-point win. Second night of a back-to-back against the West. At the time, they were at second place in the West, tied for second. Comes in, flying across country, had every excuse in the world to drop that Houston game. What did Boston do? They beat them by, I think, 23 points. Absolutely destroyed them, which should have been a scheduled loss, in my opinion, especially with the ebbs and flows of that December schedule. And then they come in tonight and play their best first half. Yet all that doesn't matter because they scored 27 second half points and shot freaking 31. They were minus 31 in shooting percentage in that second half compared to the first half.
Yeah,
what's unfortunate too. So sorry, go ahead, Franco.
Oh well, I was just going to throw in a quick point that the Celtics just really seemed like they got fatigued going into that third and fourth quarter. It's much easier to shoot a 3-pointer than it is to draw up a play and throw up an alley-oop 3 times in a row. I mean, during the second quarter, they looked like Lob City Clippers in 2013. For a couple plays in a row, but I won't get you started on that. Sorry to tug out your heartstrings, but
Luke's my guy now.
Yes, we got to see the team just start to really settle into the 3-point line, and it's much easier to just isolate that. And when they were getting to the paint tonight, it was just them during the third and fourth quarter. It seemed like it was just ISO ball trying to get to the paint, and they were just getting met by Isaiah Hartenstein and getting rejected and having the ball sent into the low sheets. It was just like they really lost touch with drawing up plays, and it really just came down to effort during that second half.
And you know what, Franco, kind of playing off that real quick, something Seamus talked about was the shot quality in the shot chart, right? A lot of the times when the Celtics were going to the rim, it was in kind of playing off the refs. It wasn't a strong take. It was kind of just like, oh, let's just get to the rim and up, give me the foul, up, give me the foul. Oh, I'm going to lean out of bounds and throw up the shot. Oh, give me the foul. So I do think that, like, again, that type of stuff, like, you can't do that, right? You got to go to the rim with purpose. You were in the first, you stopped doing it in the second.
What's unfortunate about this game as well for the Boston Celtics, number one, this is only the second time this season, and it really goes in with a lot of our points we've been making about the inconsistency surrounding this ball club and really who's been in and who's been out of the lineup. This was the second game all season in which the Celtics' top 6 played together. Think about that. Only the second time this season. Every other team gets, oh, they're injured here. The Rockets the other night, they're missing all their forwards. Oh, Oklahoma City, they didn't have Isaiah Hartenstein. Then they didn't have Chet Holmgren. Oh, Orlando. Well, the Celtics, they haven't had their top 6 healthy together. Now, it feels like all these guys are healthy at a certain point in time, so that's why they're not really in the conversation, because we'll see KP on a night, but we won't see Horford. Or, oh, yeah, we'll see Derek White, and then we won't see Derek White, or Tatum will miss a game, or Jaylen Brown. They're in the lineup, but they're not in the lineup consistently. And so the Celtics tonight, this was their second game all season, having their top 6 all in the lineup. That was not a factor with this team last year. It felt like the top 6 played all the time, every game outside of a couple back-to-backs last season. So that does go in with the point of consistency around the Celtics team this year and some of the inconsistency we've seen. However, what's also unfortunate about this game tonight is the fact this loss is not just a typical loss. We would be talking about this loss in a much different manner if it was number one against a different team, right? Maybe a team we overlook, maybe a team we become a little bit complacent with on the schedule, right? An Orlando Magic team without Boncaro and Franz Wagner. Or secondly,
Seem to be
this
better.
is a game in which we don't score 27 points in the second half and see a 26-point turnaround in and lose by 13. If we come out and perform in the second half and OKC's playing well as well, they make the comeback, and say we lose by 3. We lose by 3 at the end, and we don't put up 27 points in the second half. This is a much different game from that perspective, and we're talking more positively about the Celtics and the silver linings more so, and we are giving Oklahoma City a little bit more respect than we are here tonight, because we're really honing in on the Celtics just continuously beating themselves in this game, and the second half taking away from all of the good in which the Celtics did in the first half. We would be talking about this in a much different light if the Celtics, they lost this game in a much more respectable manner. Now, every loss, it sucks, but some losses, they are better than others, and especially the opponent and spot. Right, this game was a big game. You could feel it in the crowd. You could feel it in the hype coming into this game. You could feel it in the Celtics play. You can't say, oh, well, this is game one of 82, oh, whatever. You saw it, you felt it in the Celtics play
Right.
coming out.
Yeah.
We talked about it. They were dialed in. They were honing in on their details on both ends of the floor. And then in the second half, it looks like we're playing, we're playing the Detroit Pistons on a Tuesday night. I'm sorry to disrespect Detroit. I know they're higher
They're
standings
sitting in the
this
9th
year,
seed
but-
right now.
Not for that.
Although,
but-
you know what? It's funny. What's funny too is, like, even if Boston had a bad half, right? For Boston, a bad half would be like 45 points, right? Like, even if they just had a bad half, this would have been A-okay. No, they had a putrid second half. Absolutely putrid. Like, it wasn't even it. Like, it was just terrible. So, like, it was so bad that it was just, if it was just a little bit better, like, if it was bad to Celtic, if it wasn't putrid. I mean, the fact that it was just terrible, terrible. I mean, really, that's all God, it's just terrible.
I mean,
it just it just there's so much to say too about just this recent stretch too. How much does this really take away from what we saw the last 3 games? For real. I'm asking you guys about this.
That's kind of the question that I was kind of posing earlier, like kind of almost like a statement where it's like, man, it sucks. Like the last, like we've out of the 4 games, we've played a phenomenal 3.5 games. And it's like this one half was so putrid. We're sitting here talking about that instead of the last, 3.5 games of basketball that we've seen. And it's like, I get it, man. And then also, like people will give OKC their credit. Absolutely. Like I'm giving, if any one of us 4 is going to hype up
NBC did enough of that tonight.
NBC
did enough of that.
I'm just saying, like, if anyone's going to give them credit, it's me. And I'm just saying, like, if you watch the game, the full 48 minutes, you will see how dominant Boston was the first 24 and how horrible the Celtics were the last 24 minutes. And it's like, you're not giving OKC enough credit. It's like, how much credit can we give them when the Celtics scored 27 points the entire time? Don't let this 13-point final score fool you. It's not like this was a blowout win for the Oklahoma City Thunder. There were points where I think halfway through the fourth quarter, it was Al Horford hit a 3 on the wing to tie it at 85, I think it was. It's like this was by no means Thunder ran away with it. Maybe in the last 20 seconds when they hit a couple threes, whatever they did. But overall, like the Celtics were within striking distance its entire second half. Yet they only scored
Even in the lead, really, in the lead.
No, right. And that's what's so frustrating about this Celtics loss is you look at the turnover numbers, you look at the rebounding numbers, you look at the field goal numbers. Joe Mazzulla all the time. What does he talk about? Win or a loss. Talk about, well, we won this margin tonight. That's why we won. Well, we lost this margin tonight. That's why we lost. Look at the margins between the first half and the second half of the Boston Celtics, and that'll give you the exact reason why the Boston Celtics lost this.
And you know, I hate to kind of redirect here, but we do. This is, I don't want to do it, but this is something we do have to do tonight. That is player spotlight.
Totally forgot about it, honestly.
Yeah, so
Totally
I know it's not something. I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to stop our momentum here, but we do have to talk about
Jason did it during the second half.
We do have to talk about Jason Tatum, guys. However, before I talk about Jason Tatum, I do just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this post-game show, SeatGeek. Guys, SeatGeek is the best ticketing app out there on the market. They have all the best deals and prices, and right now, despite this loss, the Celtics are the hot ticket in Boston right now, guys. Go onto SeatGeek and at checkout, use code Celtics Weekly for $20 off your first purchase. You can find the link in the description down below, the top link. Again, huge shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring the post-game show this year. Guys, let's talk about Jason Tatum tonight. 26 points, 10 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 7 of 17 from the floor, 2 assists, 2 of 6 from behind the arc. Guys, now, we kind of talked about it. Jason Tatum was kind of the lone light in that second half for Boston. He was kind of the only one producing. Obviously, 15 out of those 27 Boston points came from Jason Tatum. Today,
that's ridiculous.
I know it is.
Oh, that's such a bad thing to
points from everybody else.
However, I think there was a bigger narrative, a bigger picture in today's game, and this was a real opportunity for Jason Tatum to assert himself as the MVP frontrunner, because he was playing the MVP, front runner in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and this was a real chance, an opportunity for the Celtics and Jason Tatum to assert himself back in there. And unfortunately, Jason Tatum fell short, guys. So I guess my question to you with Jason Tatum is could this be the nail in the coffin in his MVP campaign and his chances
in January? No. I definitely think it didn't help him. I think
it might be.
You think it's the nail in the coffin? I think Shai was my MVP pick again this year. But here's the thing. What I will say about Jason Tatum, I said it last year. You guys laughed at me. What happened? I think he was the top 2, top 3 candidate last year. And I said, Mark Dagnall, coach of the year. What happened? Mark Dagnall, coach of the year. Call me the Oklahoma City Thunder, baby. Yeah. Anyway, Jason Tatum.
Scal's got a spot on the bus for you.
He won. Whatever. He scored 15 in the second half. I really enjoyed what he did in the first half. we talked about it earlier when we had the shot charts up, all the driving inside. That's what Jason Tatum was doing in that first half, man. He was attacking, getting to the free throw line. He was doing just about everything. And that's Jason Tatum that I want to see. How many friggin' times do we say this on a post-game show? Jason Tatum, when are you going to realize you're 6'8" and you're 220 pounds? When are you going to get to the basket? He does it. He did it tonight. He was the lone star here tonight for the Celtics. 7 of 17 from the field, not the most efficient of the night, but I think on a night where the Celtics with how they shot 20%, you're not going to get a good shooting night from anybody. But credit to JT tonight showing up. I did think that fall in the third quarter was it was scary. I thought he broke his arm. I thought the way he landed on his arm, it looked like his arm snapped. I was uncomfortable. I thought, and Seamus mentioned it too, where it's like, okay, maybe the fall didn't look scary, but what is scary is, usually when Jason Tatum is on the injury report, it's something to do with that hand, that wrist. So that's something to keep an eye on. That's what, happened a few years ago when the Celtics were on that finals run. It was Jason Tatum's wrist. Is that wrist okay? It came out later that summer that Tatum, needs surgery on that wrist at some point. So that's something to keep an eye on, something to monitor, as they'll get tomorrow off. And then I think they play Denver on Tuesday. So that'll be, is Tatum going to be all bruised and scraped up from that? But as far as his game tonight, I don't think it's a nail in the coffin. You're out of the MVP race. But I do want to ask you, Rob, what makes you say that? Who's ahead of Jason Tatum now? Is it only Shai? Is it Giannis? You can't believe the dude that showed up this year.
You can't. No, definitely not. I mean, you right now have to look at what Oklahoma City's doing and what this win entails. We talk about narratives all the time with the MVP. It's such a narrative-driven award, and right now the Oklahoma City Thunder and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander they got all the narrative running for them. They're 30-6 right now, 30-5. Yeah, I mean they're playing phenomenal basketball. And on the flip side, you look at kind of Jason Tatum. He is the lone star right now that's beaming out of Boston. I know they're the defending champs, and it's kind of a crazy statement to say that, but it kind of feels like it's been an up and down month and a half for Boston. And I look around the league. Jokic statistically is just going to be there every single year from here on out until he's kind of, his prime, his decline starts. So, I think Shai Gilgeous is kind of solidified. He's right now the odds-on betting favorite. I think he's like minus 150 to win MVP. So I think Shai's ahead of him. I think Jokic right now is unfortunately going to have to be ahead of him. Although, again, a nice test for for JT against Denver the other night. And then, I think I put him right behind right in front of Giannis, because I think Boston's had a more successful season than Giannis. But yeah, no, I do think this might be, if you look at the trends that this game has, I mean, Tatum and the Celtics have a lot of footwork to do to catch up to Oklahoma City in terms of record wise. And Tatum's going to have to be the forefront of that if that were to happen.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Franco. Go ahead.
All right, fine.
No.
Yeah,
I'm looking up numbers here. You can go ahead.
All right, I'll let you get your numbers ready. But just talking about Tatum's performance tonight, I think he did a great job in playing his position. Especially, people want to see Jason Tatum attack the rim a little bit more. He did a phenomenal job of that tonight. He was being able to take advantage of a smaller Oklahoma City Thunder roster. They have been. He was able to get his looks in the paint. He was able to get his rebounds. He was able to box out, and he was able to almost lead the team. If the team continued on their path of consistently attacking the rim, I think Tatum would have been a driving force within that, and being able to get his 3-point looks during the second half would have been a little bit more of an accredited thing for the Celtics to go forward. Is just being able to have those opportunities to score and being able to have him facilitate, which the Celtics really shied away from through the final second half. I mean, 3 assists in the second half is abysmal, but you'll just be able to see them. Yeah, you'll just be able to see him be able to be that facilitator that the Celtics need. And if he adds that to his game, I don't think it'll be the nail in the coffin for his MVP MVP race or MVP candidacy. I think that he'll do a better job in later on performances, but I don't think tonight really lowered his average or median for being in his placement on the ladder in the MVP race.
Well, to answer Rob's question of whether or not Jason Tatum, this was the nail in the coffin, I do not think this was the nail in the coffin for Jason Tatum's MVP campaign. Now, do I think it was a positive point? Absolutely not, because even though Jason Tatum was the player spotlight tonight, 26 points, 10 rebounds, 7 of 17, 2 steals, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had a better game than Jason Tatum tonight. Just had a better game, specifically in the second half. You look at the numbers for this particular game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander tonight in this matchup against the Celtics. My goodness, my phone just crashed on me. But he had 33 points and 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 11 of 23, and 3 of 6 from 3. Yeah, all around the stat sheet for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But secondarily, not just the stats, okay? Looking away from the stats. The second half, there was a moment in the second half that I believe you can use, or the media out there, whether it's ESPN, whoever, the video media, right? They can use to point at and go, oh, remember this point in the season? And that was when Jason Tatum was streaking ahead of the floor, right? Derek White, Jaylen Brown, one of those two passed the ball up to Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum goes in for a hard layup, blocked by
Shai.
Right, blocked by Shai. And then on the other end of the floor, what happened? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes down there and drives to the rim, throws up a lob to Isaiah Hartenstein. Hartenstein dunks all over Derek White. Of course, a bogus and one call we saw on that particular play. A lot of people are mad at the refs for that play in particular. Maybe overshadowed the rest of what happened, but that sequence right there was an MVP-like sequence where on one end of the floor, you make the defensive stop, audacious block on Jason Tatum, the other MVP candidate out on the floor that night. I've texted you guys, oh, this is like the Kawhi block on James Harden where he hits the 3 on one end to go ahead in the game. And then on the other end, he makes a big defensive stop against James Harden. That was back all the way in 2017. But Shai, he makes the block on Jason Tatum, the other MVP candidate on the floor. And then on the other end, on the offensive end, goes down, 2-man game, Isaiah Hartenstein, lob, crowd goes nuts. That was a big sequence, and a sequence that I believe will be looked at potentially in the MVP race as time moves on. That being said, I don't think the nail in the coffin on Jason Tatum's MVP race has been hammered yet, because Jason Tatum has a lot of opportunity to run past some of these other candidates, and one of them will be on Tuesday night, as you mentioned, Justin, against the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic. And Nikola Jokic, as of late, he has been really, I agree with you, Rob, on the ranking of MVP right now. It's Jokic number 1, Shai number 2.
Oh,
Tatum
no,
3,
I had Shai. I had Shai.
Oh, you have Shai over Jokic? Okay.
I do.
Okay. But regardless, I guess I agree with the fact that Shai and
Right.
Jokic are over Tatum, right? That's what I agree with. But right now, Jokic, you look at his numbers. I mean, what is going on with this man? It's every year with Jokic. I don't know when this is gonna dwindle down or stop this year. So the last 4 games, 36, 22, and 11. All right. 23, 17, and 15. So this is points, rebounds, assists, by the way, people, right? Okay. 41, 18, and 9. 46, 9, and 10. Jokic, you look, how does he do this? You look at the minutes on the floor and you go, how is it even possible to be putting up these stats Jokic is putting up out on the floor? And so, quite frankly, Jason Tatum's going to have another opportunity on Tuesday to put up an MVP-like performance against another MVP candidate who might actually be the MVP right now. We could have agreement or disagreement on that, whether or not, but both of those guys, Shai and Jokic, are above Tatum right now. Tatum, I don't want to say he failed tonight in terms of the MVP conversation, but he came in behind Shai in terms of winning the game and putting up a better.
Oh, there he goes.
There he goes.
There he goes. You
Seamus
gotta
is-
remember.
We didn't cut him.
Can I give out flowers tonight? Can I?
No,
We're
it's
just
not
having a
allowed.
crashing issue.
Please let me give out
This-
flowers.
No, because we're not done with Jason Tatum yet.
Wait.
Come on.
Let me mention this. Let
Maybe
me add this. Tatum versus Jokic in Denver. Okay, we have that matchup coming up on the horizon. Of course, Tatum could have a better Tatum could have a better game in that matchup than Jokic, and he's right back on track for maybe the MVP conversation. Now tonight, puts up a worse line than Shea. Doesn't get the win. Does not help him in the MVP conversation whatsoever. I agree. The Thunder, you're losing ground in terms of now the Celtics aren't looking at the Thunder right now and going, "Oh, we got to get ahead of the Thunder in terms of record for Jason Tatum's MVP campaign."
Yeah, no, not
but
at all.
that does play a factor in it, no doubt. And if they're going to be 5, 6, 7 games behind the Thunder, and Shea has better numbers than Tatum, you can kiss that MVP goodbye for Jason Tatum. But there's still a lot of time for for things to shift one way or the other because Shea and Jokic could get hurt. Tatum could slot up into that spot. Tatum could have a phenomenal second half of the year. You just never know what's going to happen in the future in regards to the conversation. But right now, yes, this game did not help Tatum whatsoever, but he's going to have an opportunity on Tuesday in Denver to strengthen his MVP conversation. And then further into the second half of the season, there are more games to be played. This one was not good. Trust me, it was not good whatsoever, but it wasn't quite the nail in the coffin yet. It could, be a nice little knock to the nail, right? I'll say that. But the nail isn't quite in. There's still time to pull it out, of course. And
Listen,
Tatum.
hold on. I'll be right back. I need to step off camera for a second. But when I get back, I'm handing out my flowers, whether you casuals like it or not.
We don't have a graphic for this because we were
I have one. I have one, baby. I have one. It's gonna piss you off, Seamus. I have one. Hold on one second. I'll be right back.
Okay, here we go.
All right. Well, I do want to say this about Jason, though.
He's gonna give
tonight,
it to the water boy or something, isn't he?
Tonight, I was very disappointed in Tatum's lack of controlling of the game, because something he did so well against Minnesota just a couple nights ago was he controlled the game. Like he did such a good job at making sure everything that was happening was through him. I mean, he had complete control over everything. Tonight, it kind of felt like he was just out there. And a player at the caliber of Jason Tatum, like, you can't let that happen. You have to control the game. So Justin's about to join us back. So I don't know what he's got for us. I didn't have sign off on this, but let's see.
All right. Yeah, guess what? I didn't sign off on any of the friggin' flowers you guys handed off the last 2 weeks I've been off this show, so I don't care what you sign on or off on.
All right, let's see. This is just a get back. What do you got?
Seamus, who do you think should get the flowers tonight?
No one.
All right, Rob, who do you think?
When you score 27 points in the second half and 3 assists, no one deserves flowers.
All right, fine.
No one.
Fine. Rob clearly knows who I'm going to give the flowers to because he's looking at what I have in the media all rolled up. Franco, who do you think I should give the flowers to?
Al Horford.
Wrong. It's going to be JD Davidson tonight, guys.
Wow.
Up north in Maine. JD Davidson. I was very short time on making the graphic.
I was going to say, Justin, your Photoshop skills you're much better than this.
But listen, first of all, I'm all about the action green, so I had to go with the action green font tonight. But JD Davidson tonight, guys, scored his 2,000th point as a Maine Celtic. Tonight they had a throwback night, so they were the Maine Red Claws. Those shreds are tough. He had 40 points tonight, which is his second 40-point game of the regular season, and he had a career high 6 steals tonight for the Maine Celtics in their win. Guys, if we could take anything positive from tonight, maybe it's not with the varsity team, but the JV team tonight balled out, and JD Davidson has become honestly one of the, if not the greatest Maine Celtic of all time. I mean, he's leading the franchise in all-time points, assists. Tonight, a career high 6 steals, his second 40-point game. We've seen, obviously Jordan Walsh get his time in Boston. We've seen Drew Peterson the last month get his time with Boston. Can JD Davidson get his? Can he get an opportunity? Is he going to get an opportunity anytime soon? Come on.
Listen, the reason JD Davidson holds records for
Davidson,
points, assists.
Damn it, Rob. Get
Davidson. I said Davidson. The reason he holds those records, Justin, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I bet it's because he's been there the longest, and there's a reason he's down there. And
all right, we're concluding the rest of the show.
Oh, wow.
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 That was wrong.
unreal. No, I don't think right now in the time in which Boston has what's going on in Boston, I don't think JD Davidson gets a chance in Boston. No.
I think you should
Next someone else can feel free for someone else to tune in, but that is my thought on that.
We have an open slot on the back end of the roster. I think there's absolutely no problem since we let go of Lonnie Walker, and that could be a good.
Dude, you've been on Lonnie Walker since.
I'm never gonna let go of it, but I think that JD Davidson could easily slide into that 15th man on the roster and be able to contribute. I mean, we haven't really seen him get the minutes other than some garbage time minutes, which is understandable. But I think we haven't even really had much of a chance to see him in those types of moments to be able to shine through. I think we'll start to see a lot more of that as we reach the dog days of the season. But one thing I want to transition to is we could start talking about our bench because they didn't contribute tonight. So obviously JD Davidson could be that person at some point to help contribute there.
Well, JD Davidson, the problem with JD Davidson potentially producing for the Celtics team at any point in time is the guard rotation in front of him. If you're that fourth or fifth guard, there's just not a lot of room for a fourth or fifth guard usually, especially if you're a guard who is specifically a guard and not a combo guard where you can play guard or we can kind of slide you into the wing. You think about Holiday and White, those two guards can sometimes, we've talked about it this season, they've been almost morphed into these 3-and-D wings at times because they're more physical, they're lengthy, they can defend. And Peyton Pritchard as well, he's not really that type of guard, but when you have those three players, Pritchard, White, Holiday, who are you taking minutes away from to slot in JD Davidson, who's going to be just a guard for you because he's not tall enough, he's not lengthy enough to be that combo guard like Derek White and Drew Holiday. So who are you taking away minutes from to actually slot in JD Davidson? And I'll mention about the 15th roster spot. He could be signed to that last roster spot, but it would only be after the trade deadline. The reason we keep that open is for flexibility going ahead into the trade deadline. And also, we have 3 two-way spots now. So those 3 two-way spots are pseudo 15th roster spots. So if we wanted to use JD Davidson, we would, and we would take up his 45 days away from Maine, but we just don't really see that happen very often. And that's what kind of makes me think, probably not going to happen later on in the season. You could see him signed to the roster, but it wouldn't be as, I don't want to say it as an important addition as Keita last year. When Keita was signed to the standard spot, he was actually playing quite a bit. We saw him in December and January last year. We were going, Keita, look at him. And at the beginning of this season, Keita was out there. Justin, the other night you handed out flowers to Keita. Of course, he contributed for the Boston Celtics. We just really haven't seen that out of Davidson yet. We've seen him contribute for the Maine Celtics, but not to the Boston Celtics the way Keita did last year to gain that standard spot. So that's another discrepancy that we'll see play out later in time.
Shout out JD on the 2,000 points in Maine. But I think we should talk about the bench we have in Boston, guys, because tonight they were terrible. And yes, it's nice to see Pritchard and those guys contribute against the Charlottes and the Detroits and the Washingtons. Although, sorry, not Detroit anymore. I'm sorry. It's a force of habit. It's a force of habit to say Detroit. But the bottom tier teams, these are the types of games you really want to see that boost, especially on the low scoring games, because those 10 to 15 points you can get out of either Pritchard or Hauser can really be the difference maker in a game like this. Guys, tonight, the bench outside of Al Horford's rebounding and his effort was a complete non-factor. Hauser was rough. Pritchard was rough. Now we know what this core can do. Do you guys think there is just a little rust with this top 8 only playing their second game together? Or do you think that this bench, there's tweaks to be made at the deadline with some contract, dancing?
Well, there's got to be a little bit of, I don't want to say it's rust, but just, would you call it rust with because they played together last season. We've seen a lot of these
Right.
players in the lineup, but now when the top 6 is all together, is it rust or is it really like the integration of everybody at once? I guess you could call it rust. I don't want to call it, but that's basically what it is, I guess. But at the same time, the bench, this is why we've already mentioned Lonnie Walker in this postgame. We already knew this was going to happen, right? We lose by 13 to the Thunder. Lonnie Walker.
Lonnie
gotta
Walker.
mention him. Lonnie Walker. But for real, Lonnie Walker, losing him earlier this season, this game is why that could be big, because this is a team in which we could meet in the NBA Finals. We could meet the Thunder. And yes, there were some silver linings in the first half we could take out of this game. And Robbie mentioned it earlier in the post game. If you went into a game 2, you'd be thinking, okay, this was closer than 13 points. We did good things in the first half. All we need to do is play a full 48 minutes. However, at the same time, the bench in this game, Peyton Pritchard, non-factor. Sam Hauser, non-factor. Al Horford, he is really up and down and had a rough December. So you cannot count on Al Horford to be the Al Horford of old at this point in time every single night. The bench is very, very thin if you do not see Pritchard step up or Hauser step up, if not both of them. And that's where the Lonnie Walker subtraction in preseason, when we were going, any team want to take Jaden Springer? Any team want to take Jaden Springer's money so we can sign Lonnie Walker to the minimum? When it didn't happen, we had to let Lonnie Walker go to avoid triggering another $11 million on the luxury tax. And from that, we made our team worse. And the depth took a hit because Lonnie Walker was somebody who was contributing in preseason, contributing to real NBA teams last year. There's no reason he shouldn't be in the NBA right now other than there's just no spot out there for him. The league is pretty deep right now, and there's just no specific spot for Lonnie Walker. We could still see him later on in the season with maybe the Celtics, maybe another team. You never know. You never know. The opportunity is still there. But at the same time, that's why that subtraction was so big, is tonight's game where you face the Oklahoma City Thunder. Pritchard, Hauser, they're compromised. Horford, you can't rely on them every single night. And it would have been nice to have another bench player who was stepping up in this game. We just didn't see that at all. And that's just unfortunately where we're at with the Celtics bench. Some nights we can look at them and go, yep, this is what we expect. There's Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard. They're giving you those 10, 15, 20-point performances like Peyton Pritchard we've seen consistently. But Justin, we mentioned it before we even came on this postgame. It just didn't really feel like a Peyton Pritchard type of night at all. And it wasn't. And when it wasn't, the bench, non-factor. There's nothing coming off the bench. If you don't have anything from Pritchard, Hauser, Horford, there's nothing going on the bench whatsoever. And so that Lonnie Walker subtraction, especially tonight, looks a little, we don't mention it against the Magic or bring up the Pistons again or the Hornets or I know we're just picking on the Pistons, but the reality is, haven't we blown out the Pistons like twice this year? We literally played a game against. How about this? The Wizards. The Wizards.
No,
okay,
there
the
you go.
Wizards.
Wizards.
We'll say, how about this? You could say anybody. You could say Chicago. You could say Philly.
Well,
you
we
could
lost
say
to Chicago.
Brooklyn. You could say Toronto. You could say Washington. You
Toronto,
could say
okay.
You could say
Toronto
Utah.
would be
You
easy.
could say New Orleans. You could say Portland. You
New
could
Orleans
say
is
Phoenix.
just.
You
New
could
Orleans, I'll say that's a big game coming up on the horizon
Just
because if
saying.
we
I'm
lose
just
to New
throwing
Orleans,
it
we're gonna
out.
be.
That's it. That's, you know, I'm just throwing it
I
out
think
there.
if New Orleans beats us, they're going to be. I don't think they want to win.
No. Well,
who's going to be madder if the Celtics lose New Orleans? Pelicans fans or the Celtics?
Just this
It's
was
like
a terrible
Patriots
day. It just
games
reminded
today.
me of the New England Patriots
Yeah.
who didn't want to win. None of us wanted them to win earlier
I
today,
did.
and of course they did.
Yeah, bad day as a Boston.
There was nothing
Gotta
worse.
Throw things across
was
the room right now because of the
there's-
Patriots.
Here's the thing that people don't see behind the scenes. There's nothing worse than we have a group chat of the Celtics Talk Weekly team members. There's nothing worse than when the Celtics are absolutely crumbling and we're borderline, we're just venting. And There's nothing
Especially
worse than
somebody in here who's
Franco and
currently looking
Randy
down at the ground.
just randomly, the most important game of the year in the fourth quarter, Franco and Randy are talking about Gerard Mayo in the New England Patriots, and they're arguing about, oh, did this set us back 5 years on a rebuild? There's nothing worse than that. There's just nothing worse than watching the Celtics just demoralizingly score 27 second-half points and Franco and Randy arguing on if the New England Patriots rebuild is going to take another 5 extra years because they lost to because they won.
I think it was like right in the middle of
It was
Shai's
bad.
block. And then it's the alley-oop.
And then
I look at my phone, and it's like, oh, but Gerard. And I'm like, guys, like, I'm going to leave this group chat right now if you guys don't stop talking about Gerard Mayo. Wow, Shai Alexander. It's not like you're up by 30. If you're up by 30, oh, my God, yeah.
But it's like, okay, like, whatever, game's over, like, we're chill, like, we're just talking. No, middle of the game.
Middle of, like, Shai blocks Tatum. White gets, yeah.
I think
they mentioned that on the post game too. Like they went right to post game.
What a game! This is such a fun game as Tatum's getting rejected at the rim and freaking White's getting baptized down the other end. Oh, what a great game! Yeah, okay, dude, great game for who?
How about Travis Hunter though?
Like, really? I mean, come on.
No, bro, and I'll mention this too. After the game was over, the post game, NBC Sports Boston just. What happened? The fan base saved Abby Chin and her job. Why didn't we save everybody else's job who used to be on the post game? Like, can we acquire Kyle Draper back from Sacramento?
He got a better option. He got a better job.
Right,
Kyle Draper, if you're watching, come join.
He's amazing out in Sacramento. Amazing. Drape's grind. We're always on it. All right, but the post game starts, and literally the first thing that Tom Giles mentions is. Oh, I don't know if anybody knew this watching the Celtics game, but if there are any Patriots fans out there, Gerard Mayo, the Patriots just let go Gerard Mayo. So NBC Sports Boston
lost the biggest game of the year, and that's what they're talking about.
NBC Sports Boston gets the thumbs down tonight because they were OKC Sports Boston, and just right after the game, it's like, oh, by the way, guys, this is Celtics post game, but we'll have Patriots post game right after this, and Gerard Mayo is gone. So it's like,
that was terrible.
What happened? What happened? What happened to this network?
There's going to
bring back CSN.
It's all my fault.
There's going to be group chat restrictions going in from here on in. But I mean, this is
when the Celtics are losing bad. There's no Patriot talk.
Yeah, I mean, or just no Patriots. How about no Patriots talk in general? I mean, really. Come on.
You guys have already given them 5 minutes tonight.
That's true. That's true. See, it's
like,
working.
All right, let's go around the panel. What does everybody think of Gerard Mayo's fire?
Yeah, no, like, oh God.
Of course, Franco, radio boy. That's all they do on sports radio is talk about the Patriots.
It is. You turn on 98.5. I guarantee you, they're talking about Gerard Mayo right now.
Dude, last year, Celtics like 30-0 at home. They're the best team in the friggin' league. I turn on Felger and Maz, and they're talking about the New England friggin' Patriots, one of the worst teams in the entire NFL. I mean, it's abysmal. But I do want to get back on track because I know we're running up on time and get back to this bench. I was a little bit concerned. I will say I was a little bit concerned because this was and Rob, you mentioned it earlier in the show where it's like, yes, this is only one game out of 82, but at the same time, you look at these types of games against teams like Oklahoma City Thunder, who you are likely to see as a team coming out of the Western Conference if you make it out of the Eastern Conference. Peyton Pritchard tonight, and Seamus, you agree with me. I know that because we talked about this before we hit record. You just weren't feeling a game from Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser when they checked in. It's like, well, I don't really feel like this is a game in which Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser are going to excel in. And that was the case tonight. They weren't, I don't know how to explain it because they just didn't play good at all. And to me, it seemed as if Peyton Pritchard didn't even want the ball in his hands. He didn't want any part. That's just what it felt like to me. And I will say this because Seamus and I had a little bit of an argument about a month ago when the Celtics played the Milwaukee Bucks and Peyton Pritchard scored 0 points. Peyton Pritchard scored 0 points on 3 shot attempts. He just kind of got taken out of the ball game. Peyton Pritchard didn't really get taken out of the ball game tonight. he just didn't play well whatsoever. He also didn't play a lot. He only played 10 minutes, which to me, right there, Peyton Pritchard, leading sixth man of the year candidate, only played 10 minutes tonight. That just tells me that Pritchard just didn't fit well in this game. He just didn't have his spot in this game. 1 assist, 1 rebound, 0 of 5 shooting from the floor with a turnover and a foul. Like, I just didn't see it from Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser, fellas. Let's face it, a little bit concerned about Sam Hauser this year shooting. Had a couple nice game stretches in a row, a couple games in a row where he played well. Saw him shoot, have a couple nice shots in that. I believe it was the Minnesota game, because I almost gave him my flowers because he had hit 5 threes in that game. But other than that, Sam Hauser just feels off this year. And I hate to bring this up when you're 16 games over 500, second in the Eastern Conference, coming off a championship. I do hate to do that because it sounds like nitpicking. But at the same time, that's what Sam Hauser is here to do, is shoot the basketball. And when he's not shooting the basketball, it makes it really, really, really hard to get any sort of other production out of it. So when guys like Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard are coming in, dropping goose eggs, it's going to be really hard for the Boston Celtics to win games, especially because when those guys are in, it's likely they're going to have to carry that load in the non-Tatum minutes. So when you're seeing these types of games from them, obviously it's not the biggest surprise that you see the Celtics a minus 13 at the end of the ball game in the final score.
Well, I'll tell you what. When you have Drew Holiday playing the way he did tonight, it really thins out the bench for the Celtics, because Hauser's responsibility when it comes in is to run off screens and to knock down shots, right? It's not to get him the ball and to create. Pritchard is kind of the one unique guy off the bench that we have the ability to create for himself. Cornette is a diver. He's a rim runner. Queta, he's a diver. He's a rim runner. Hauser's an off-ball movement type of guy. Guys like Tatum and Brown are going to really thrive in giving Hauser the ball. So Pritchard is the guy that you have to look at on the Celtics bench to really consume the biggest role, and kind of that's where the pressure on that bench goes to. So tonight, yes, Hauser, did not have his best game, right? And I understand that he played pretty terrible, but there's also going to be nights where Hauser can't miss. And that's what you get with Hauser. That's the price you pay in the NBA when you have a sharpshooter coming off the bench. It's what you do with JJ Redick. You see Duncan Robinson. These guys are shooters, and shooters shoot. Sometimes you're going to be 5 of 5, and sometimes you're going to be 0 of 5, right? But the idea behind it is that those guys are going to keep shooting. Tonight he was cold. I look at Pritchard. On the other hand, I need more out of Pritchard. Only 10 minutes. I would like to see him kind of be inserted into that second half lineup in times when Celtics went dry.
Kind of keep an eye on these rotations too, because it's not often we're fully healthy at that. This is, I believe, only our second game where we are entirely, at least top 8 guys are healthy. And we've played almost 40 games so far. So keep an eye, even though it is only January, these rotations that we see against teams like Oklahoma, Cleveland, New York, teams that we're most likely going to see in April, May, and June, that could be a little preview of what the rotation is going to look like come playoff time. So I do just want to make that point, because you also didn't see Neemias Queta tonight, a guy who had a pretty heavy load and has had a pretty solid West Coast trip so far. So that's kind of just a point I want to make on that. I just thought it was a little odd, Seamus, with the whole Pritchard and Hauser thing.
Well, I don't want to cast a ton of concern here against the Oklahoma City Thunder in game 36 of the season, right? Game 36 of the season. But this Oklahoma City Thunder team is a team we could potentially see later on down the line in the NBA Finals. And Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser, both of those guys, it felt like they were a little compromised by Oklahoma City's speed, length, athleticism, physicality. And I'll mention this with some other players on the Celtics roster, like Queta, like Cornette. The execution of the Oklahoma City Thunder sometimes can leave guys on the bench, and we see they don't play at all or they play less. When that Thunder team was executing at a high level, we cannot have players out there who, oh, they're going to miss a possession here. Oh, they're not quite in their position here, whether it's offensively or defensively. We saw that with Kata against the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers earlier this season. When it came to those high-level matchups against teams executing well to the highest level in the NBA. The Warriors, of course, fallen off since then. But to start the season, the Warriors, and we all know the ability of the Golden State Warriors, and of course the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. Kata, they were picking him apart on each possession because he was not in the correct positions, whether it's defensively and then offensively. Just he was being compromised with whatever they had defensively thrown against him. So against these teams who execute at a high level and against teams with physicality, speed, athleticism, length, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, that's when we start to see guys like Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser and other guys on the bench like Cornette and Kata, and even Al Horford too, with his age at this moment in time. They start kind of falling back into the fold a little bit and being less high impact players than we're really accustomed to at certain points in the season against other opponents. And again, I don't want to cast a ton of concern because this is a regular season game in January, but at the same time, it's a game against an opponent in which you could see later on down the line, and it's an opponent in which is playing well. They're on, was this their 15th straight winning?
15 games.
Now let me throw something into that. It's a 15-game winning streak, but at the same time, there was a loss to the Milwaukee Bucks smack dab in the middle that didn't count because it was the NBA Cup final.
Okay.
But still,
okay,
regardless,
so
they still haven't lost since December 1st, technically, and only twice if you count that Milwaukee game. So, like, regardless of whatever you want to say about the streak, the Thunder, they're a team that's playing well, executing at a high level. And when the Celtics are playing a team like this, we see the bench players and all the role players. It can be thin against the better opponents. It can really get to a level in which you're looking at it going, who do we have here? We have our top six and really our top five. Al Horford, I know he's involved in the top six, but at the same time, Al Horford is not playing like a top six player this season, specifically in December, did not at all. When you have that top five, yes, you know your best five players, but say one of those players goes out like Porzingis last year, and God forbid, I mean, any of the others, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, if they were to go out, yes, we know who we're slotting in. It's going to be Pritchard, Hauser, and then the rest. However, at that moment in time, can you trust those guys in those minutes against more lengthy teams, more athletic teams, teams with a quicker pace like the Oklahoma City Thunder, teams who are executing at a high level? That's what's a little concerning about the Celtics bench at this point in time right now is when you see them against better opponents, they're a little lesser than when we see them against teams like the Magic, the Bulls, the Sixers, whoever you want to throw out there, the Pacers, the Raptors. It just, that's kind of where we're at with this team right now.
Yeah, the depth, I think, would have been a huge factor tonight if they were able to contribute because, like I said in the earlier half of tonight's show, that the Celtics starting five looked fatigued going into that third and fourth quarter. You need to be able to have people you can rely on to be able to fill in and be able to alleviate that stress in those minutes off of Kristaps, who's been dealing with an injury. First game back, and then second game back, you played against the Rockets. But you have guys like Jrue Holiday, who you don't want to have running around 30, 35 minutes in a game on a consistent basis. You want to be able to have guys to rely on, be able to score, and be able to help almost spark those runs again. Like Peyton Pritchard all season has been that spark plug off the bench. We've been able to see him, and when it reaches like the 6-minute mark in the first quarter, Peyton Pritchard comes in and he'll knock down a couple of threes. Where is that during the second half of games? If we start having that during the second halves of games, I will feel like they'll be completely rejuvenated and being able to bring their runs back to life, being able to slow down the game and being able to control the pace and having players that you can slot in and feel comfortable with. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown sitting on the bench, being able to catch their breath. So if it does come down to the fourth quarter like it did tonight, they're fresh and ready to go when it comes down to crunch time, and they're able to make the plays that we're accustomed to them making.
Yeah, I mean, in a matchup like this, it needs to be Brown and Tatum. The bench is important. I understand that. But at the end of the day, when you have a starting lineup that's making as much money as Boston's is, and it's as talented as Boston is, the bench just needs to support. Tonight, I look at it, Brown, non-existent in the second half. Drew Holiday, 2 points.
Yeah.
You know how much money Drew Holiday is making to be getting 2 points? I mean, Kristaps Porzingis, non-factor in the second half. I mean, really. So, yeah, we can sit here and point the fingers at the bench, but the truth of the matter is Boston's starters needed to be better because those guys, those top five guys, mind you guys, like the burger joint, right? We got 5 of those motherfuckers, excuse my language, who can score the basketball at a high level. So, really.
I'm glad you mentioned the second half from Brown. Well, you can add let's add Porzingis into that mix. Brown, Porzingis, White, Holiday. The combined shooting between them in the second half, right? It was 2 of 20.
Right. It's terrible.
2 of 20. 2 of 20. And if you just take out Porzingis, he's the 2, by the way. When you say 2 of 20, Porzingis is the 2. He was 2 of 7. You take out Porzingis, 0 of 13 from Brown, White, Holiday. 0 of 7 from Brown. 0 of 4 from Derek White. 0 of 2 for Drew Holiday. 0 points between White, Holiday, and Brown. And then factor Porzingis between the 4 of them, only 7 points. 7 points between 4 players, your top 4 players outside of Jason Tatum, your MVP candidate, who had 15 of the 27 points scored in the second half. Brown, what's so frustrating about this performance, we gave Tatum the player spotlight, but in the first half, that was Brown's spotlight to lose. And he lost it. In the second half, the first half, he came away with 21 points, and he was really the spearhead of the Celtics being aggressive, going towards the paint, really pushing the pace on the Oklahoma City Thunder, giving them a little bit of their own medicine. And, of course, you saw Jaylen Brown with a couple of those jumpers. You saw Jaylen Brown going to the rim, laying it up and in. You saw Jaylen Brown playmaking for others as well, going downhill towards the rim. Yet in the second half, he's 0 of 7, and from 3, he's 0 of 3. So you take 3 shots from beyond the arc, 4 shots come inside the paint. He scores 0 points. Jaylen Brown, no assists, no rebounds in the second half, no blocks, no steals. Second half, I mean, this is Club a Trillion right here. A little reference, but this is right here. 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 0 field goal makes in the second half for Jaylen Brown. That's a cardio game in the second half for Jaylen Brown. That's a cardio game after the first half. Let's go to his first half stats real quick. Let me just mention those. Okay, 8 of 12 from the floor. 8 of 12. 66%. That's great. 21 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and a block. That's basically what he ended up for the game because he put up 0 across the board in the second half. How do you have a first half where you're 8 of 12, 21 points, and it looks like it's his spotlight to lose? And then in the second half, he goes Club a Trillion, puts up zeros everywhere. That's astonishing looking at Jaylen Brown's line, knowing how impactful he was in the first half. Going into the second half, whoa. That is startling, mind-boggling. We'll come up with another word for it because
we'll get that.
Zero.
Get the source out, Franco. Come on.
It was putrid.
What do we got?
What are we going to? Mind-boggling?
We got mind-boggling. We have I'm losing the vocabulary here. This is what. All right, let's find some synonyms
when you got these things,
astonishing, breathtaking, spectacularly staggering,
perplexing,
startling, and
everyone's
stunning.
Got a phone. If you're watching the show, you got a phone.
Got to put minutes on that thing.
I do.
It's
bets aren't hitting.
Unfortunately, breathtaking. There's
Correct.
54 similar synonyms here on.
How about
So-
exquisite?
Hold on.
It has
Hold
nothing
on.
to do with anything. I just thought of that word.
Does this, even if we go and we beat Denver,
mind bending?
even if we go out and beat Denver, how successful is this road trip to you guys?
Successful.
I think
Successful.
because I think
Successful.
so far it's still a very successful trip, even though you are technically 2-1 on the trip. I'd say you're like Dan Franco.
This was happening the other night.
I think you're more so like 2.5 in like half. Like I think that's what the record is
Stick
because
is gone.
Yeah, think about it. If you beat Denver, you played one bad half of basketball. That happens.
right, and absolutely, and that's it. This is a tough road trip anyway, and then you're at home for a week, and then you go back out to the West Coast, and I mean West Coast, LA
All those
twice,
teams are
Golden
gonna
State.
suck.
And then you start to come back home a little bit. You come to Dallas, where I don't know if you guys remember this, but back in our day, back when we were kids, they used to play all the Texas teams in ones. They call it the Texas Triangle. I mean, we played Houston tonight, yet there's 3 different road trips that we're seeing, 3 different West Coast road trips that we're seeing each Texas team. But whatever, that's besides the point. I think it's an extremely successful road trip so far. Yes, you did take a tough loss tonight in an abysmal second half of basketball, but at the same time, you played a really good first 2.5 games coming off of honestly your worst stretch of basketball, I would honestly say, since the December/January of the 2022-2023 season, just before we turned it around.
And you know what? This is such a weird placed game because it's like, all right, here's this West Coast, right? Oh, it's tough, right? You're seeing Minnesota, who's been up and down. Houston's good, but they're inexperienced, so a focused Celtics was going to get them, right? You played some weaker teams. You played Toronto, and then it's like smack dab in it, right?
We didn't have Drew Peterson tonight, by the way. Just gonna say
Anton
that.
Watson was in Maine, so you guys were so set up for
No Drew Peterson.
No.
I haven't seen this
no
man.
Shire. No Shire.
I mean, Drew Peterson is the only G League player I've ever seen be compared to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. That's what I'll say about that.
That is true. That is true.
What?
What was I saying? Okay, no, I remember. All right, so but this is the only so think about the stretch, right? So it's like, okay, you have Toronto, you have Minnesota, you have Houston. You kind of look at those games, you figure, okay, if Boston plays the way they should, they're gonna win. Tonight, it's like if Boston can play the way they should, right, and they can, and you could lose to Oklahoma because of how good they are, right? They're up there with Boston. And then it's like, okay, Denver. If Boston plays the way they should against Denver, unless they get those like seeing ghost things, they'll win. So I'm just looking for them to respond, right? This team has always responded. Respond, rip off 4, rip off 5. If they do that, right, and they win 5 in a row or 4 in a row, 6 in a row in that area, right? Anything over 4, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this Thunder loss, bad half of basketball. These guys are back where they need to be. You know, they are good. They're picking up some steam. So, you know, that's how I see it. But Denver, it starts with Denver. Denver's not going to be easy. You're playing the Mile High. You're going against Jokic. This is a Denver team that Boston has really struggled with. They see ghosts when they play Denver. So I am looking, you know, this Denver one to me. This is, if they lose this, then I'm kind of back to, okay, we're back in December territory now. That progress, you know, isn't really there.
Well, I think too, you got to take it quarterly with the Boston Celtics right now.
Right.
We're good. We're all good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a some of we have
we've lost
destination
we've lost
errors.
we've lost the
Yeah,
Instagram.
Instagram's gone, but
regardless, okay. Well, taking the whole trip quarterly so far, or even what, the last 4 games, counting this game, if you want to count the Toronto Raptors game. I know we're looking specifically at the West Coast road trip, but you take the Toronto Raptors game as well. We've only played 2 bad quarters, which were the last 2 quarters in 4 games. So what? We played 10 of 12 quarters well during this West Coast road trip. And if you want to go even further, that's 14 of 16, right? 14 of 16 quarters that we've played well in the last 4 games. And you look at that and go, there's definitely a silver lining there after what we saw in December. Now, the second half in Oklahoma City was just abysmal, but I agree that the response in Denver is going to be big, because if the Celtics come out and lay a goose egg in that game, we're not going to be talking positively about this last stretch. We're going to be going, we saw this in December. It's a tough game in Denver. Don't get me wrong. And if the Celtics come out and say they lose by 1 on a buzzer beater or something, we might give them some leeway. And then
Yeah.
in that scenario, and if they play good from a quarterly standpoint, we might give them some leeway. But if they really come out and look lackadaisical from an effort standpoint, from an execution standpoint, they look more like they did in the second half tonight than they did in the first half, because we know what they can look like if they played how they did in the first half. The Celtics did. And they really have as of late. If they come out like they did in the first half in Denver, we're gonna be still talking. Okay, this was a successful stretch here. Although that second half in Oklahoma City, that was uncharacteristic and awful. But in Denver, if it looks more like the second half here, which I really don't expect us to have a second half like this or a first half
Ever
like
again.
this. This is almost historical. We need our own Dick Lipe here because 27 points. You follow up a 15-point quarter with a 12-point quarter. You shoot 3 of 24 from 3, 8 of 40 from the floor, 3 assists. That's like we said it earlier in the post game. That is hard to do regardless of the defensive adjustments,
Literally.
regardless of your opponent. That is just hard to do if you're a basketball team, a professional basketball team, especially if you're one of the best basketball teams in the entire NBA like the Celtics are. So you don't expect this out of them moving forward, but if you lay a goose egg in Denver, yeah, it's going to go back to the conversations we were having in December, unfortunately, instead of what we've been having as of late, which is, okay, looks like they're turning a little bit of a corner here.
Right.
Although I will say this about the Celtics. The first half tonight may have been the most, like the biggest data point in us turning the corner, even though what happened in the second half happened. Because Toronto, they're awful right now. The Toronto Raptors, I don't want to say that was a nothing game because we've learned
Yeah,
that's
it was a
not
nothing game.
exactly
54-point wins don't happen.
54 points. There was just no competition coming out of Toronto. They were missing RJ Barrett. They were missing Emmanuel Quickly. They were missing somebody else pretty big on their roster too. Doesn't come to mind. But that game against Minnesota, Minnesota is struggling right now. Okay, we win by 3 there. It's not as if they aren't a good team, but they're struggling. And then in Houston, the big thing in that Houston game that keeps I don't want to say it's eating at me or sticking out in terms of us.
Again.
Yep, he crashed again. Yep.
All right, he's gonna be back in a second.
Goodness.
There we go.
The,
There we
the
go.
crashes tonight are just, I don't know what's going on here on this end. But the Houston game, right? What sticks out to me about the Houston game and why the Celtics won by 23. Now, the Celtics did a lot of good in that game and deserve praise for what happened because they were driving to the paint. They were paying attention to detail on both ends of the floor, attacking mismatches, and they just took the throttle to Houston, especially in that fourth quarter where they put the game out of reach, and then all of a sudden the starters could rest. But at the same time, the Houston game, no Amin Thompson, no Jabari Smith, no Tari Eason. Those are their 3 best wings, in which we've been talking about, maybe not us on this post game, but the media in general, right? They've been talking about all season. Oh, Houston, they have these guard dog wings. They really turned the corner in terms of having these guys who they can really rely on defending on that end of the floor. Well, they weren't around to defend the Boston Celtics, and Houston, there was a lot of matchup problems Houston dealt with against the Boston Celtics because they just didn't have the size, the athleticism. They didn't have the personnel to match up with the Celtics. So I don't want to put down our 3-game win streak there against Toronto, against Minnesota, against Houston, because there were a lot of great moments which the Celtics put up during that win streak. But at the same time, I felt as if that win streak, if you just look at it quarterly, right, that was lesser of how the Celtics played than how they played in the first half against Oklahoma City. What they did in the first half against Oklahoma City, the Celtics, that was more impressive than anything they did on the 3-game winning streak, in my mind, because of the opponent, because of the moment, because of what they've been going through as of late. But in that second half, it just wiped all of that away. And now we're looking at, okay, the next game in Denver. This is still, again, we kind of have to look at this team with a grain of salt right now and go, okay, these were inconsistent problems of effort early on in December and throughout December. we're looking at we need to see a few weeks worth of good, solid basketball on both ends of the floor to really put that reputation, that identity back on the Celtics of where it was last season. And right now, I would say that we've seen great data as of late, going all the way up until halftime of this game. I'll say that, but it's still up in the air if the Celtics can retain that consistency, because if they do come out and lose to Denver, we're looking at a 2-2 road trip. We're looking at we played well against the I almost said the Thunder. Well, in the first half, sure. The Rockets, who are missing their three best wings. We played well against Minnesota, who just could not get it together offensively whatsoever. But then the two tougher opponents, right? Oklahoma City and Denver, we couldn't quite show up in the same way. So I would say the question of whether the Celtics can gain that consistency and that identity that we saw last season is still very much up in the air, although we have seen good data points already. And the best one was really that first half against Oklahoma City tonight, which is just really just the most unfortunate part of this game, is that you can't praise that half too much, but it really was one of the best first halves and just halves the Celtics have played all season.
Right, without a doubt. Well,
I wouldn't say it was an effort problem though tonight. I don't. I think
second half depends on how you look at it.
Okay, so second half, I think it was a decision thing. I think it was they strayed away from what was working, and it came back to bite them in the ass. The Oklahoma City Thunder, not only being one of the best defensive teams, but when your team is offensively struggling as bad as the Boston Celtics did tonight in the second half, as well as you're up against the best defensive team in the league, that is not a good recipe for success within itself. I will say, I know where it's like, why are you guys talking about the first half so much? Well, because we're a Celtics show, and that's the only damn good thing that came out of this game tonight. The first half, I very much so enjoyed how engaged the Celtics were in the first. They were dialed in tonight. They were locked in. They came in. They knew the mission. They knew how big of a mountain they were going to have to climb. Unfortunately, they didn't climb it all the way. In fact, there was an avalanche that came about them. And but I think the approach, I think the effort's there, right? We saw it against the Minnesota Timberwolves. You saw it against the Houston Rockets. Say what you want. Certain guys were out for both teams during these past 3 games, but at the same time, like, you can't control that. What you can control is your effort. In that second half today, I do think compared to the first half, yes, the effort was down, but I do think it was a lot to do with the Celtics struggling offensively and the Oklahoma City Thunder being the top defense in the league. Those two things together is just going to create a monstrosity. You cannot you cannot turn the ball over more than you make a basket. That just can't happen. That just can't happen. But
and it won't happen.
It won't.
That won't happen again.
Saying that, it's like, how many times are we going to see a 20-point half from the Boston Celtics again? You're never going to see that. You're not going to see that again. It's unless Rick Pitino comes back to the Celtics, it's not going to happen ever again. So I don't think we have to worry about that.
Right. Without a doubt. Well, I'll tell you what, the Celtics, their run is definitely not over. And as a matter of fact, I hate to break it to you, but I got a feeling it's just going to get started. So just sit down, wait, and give this time, because the Celtics are going to figure it out.
Bring out the best in us. Like the New York game, what happened since then? That New York game, RJ Barrett hits a buzzer beater. We've been to 2 NBA finals and won one since then. So this is our RJ Barrett. This is a turning point. Here we go. We're gonna come in. We're gonna beat Denver.
Well, I'll tell you what. A 26-10 record is pretty good to needing a turning point. So I just want to put that out there so that we are this good, because the bar is pretty high. But the Celtics, they're going to get back in action, guys. Denver, that is this Tuesday, January 7th. That tip-off is at 10 o'clock Eastern time. After the final buzzer sound, we will have you covered for Postgame Live. I say this because Seamus has the luxury of being an hour behind us, and that's not a 10 o'clock time. That is a 9 o'clock time. So I'm going to be having a couple cups of coffee throughout that game to keep myself up. But guys, again, the Celtics tonight, well, they had a total second half collapse as they lost to the now 15 wins in a row Oklahoma City Thunder, 105-92. Guys, the Celtics, like I said, will be back in action on Tuesday night. So until then, unfortunately, after a loss, I hate saying it, but cue the music. And you know the drill, guys. Until next time, go Celtics.
Put your hands down. Damn it.